The night was heavy with an unsettling stillness as I embarked on a seemingly endless drive through the desolate countryside. The road stretched out before me, an unending ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the abyss of the inky blackness. The only companions I had were the dim glow of my headlights and the relentless pounding of rain against the windshield. The windshield wipers swayed back and forth in a hypnotic rhythm, casting eerie shadows on the wet road ahead. My knuckles clenched the steering wheel, my grip growing tighter with each passing mile. The isolation of the night pressed in on me, and I couldn't shake the sensation that I was being drawn into something beyond my comprehension. As I rounded a bend in the road, a distant figure came into view. It stood motionless at the roadside, shrouded in the rain and darkness. Panic surged through me as I approached, the figure becoming more distinct with every inch I drew closer. It was a woman, drenched and disheveled, her pale face a mask of terror. Instinctively, I pulled over to offer assistance, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and compassion. She approached my car, her eyes wide and pleading. Her trembling voice begged me for a ride, explaining that she had been stranded on this forsaken road for hours. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the passenger door and she slid inside, her clothes dripping rainwater onto the leather seats. She introduced herself as Emily and thanked me profusely. But there was something off about her demeanor, something unnerving that I couldn't quite place. As we continued down the road, her presence in the car grew increasingly unsettling. She spoke in riddles and cryptic whispers, her words a disjointed jumble of nonsensical phrases. I stole glances at her from the corner of my eye, and her appearance seemed to shift and distort, as if she were a mirage. My unease grew as she guided me down winding, unfamiliar roads that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. The rain intensified, pelting the car with a relentless fury, and the world outside became a blur of shadows and mist. In the distance, I saw the faint glow of an old, dilapidated mansion nestled among the trees. Emily urged me to drive toward it, her voice growing more urgent and insistent. Against my better judgment, I obeyed, and the mansion loomed before us like a forsaken fortress from a nightmare. As we entered the mansion, the air grew heavy with the stench of decay and dampness. The walls were adorned with faded portraits, their eyes seeming to follow our every move. Emily led me deeper into the labyrinthine mansion, her footsteps echoing through the eerie silence. In a dimly lit chamber, I saw a circle of candles surrounding a grotesque altar. Emily's voice took on a haunting tone as she revealed her true nature, a malevolent entity that had lured me into her trap. The candles flickered to life, casting dancing shadows on the walls. I was paralyzed with fear as Emily's form contorted and twisted, her features becoming increasingly grotesque and monstrous. She cackled with delight, her voice echoing through the chamber as she revealed her intent to claim my soul as her own. Desperation clawed at me as I struggled to escape, but the mansion seemed to shift and change, trapping me in its nightmarish maze. I was helpless, a victim of this terrifying night drive that had led me into the clutches of a supernatural horror beyond imagination. My screams were drowned out by the sinister laughter that echoed through the cursed halls of the mansion, sealing my fate in the darkness of that accursed night. As I drove down the desolate highway, the moon cast an eerie glow on the deserted road ahead. My heart raced with each passing mile, and a chilling sense of dread washed over me. The night air was thick with an unnatural silence, broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves in the trees lining the roadside. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as I peered into the inky darkness beyond my headlights. Shadows danced on the edges of my vision, taunting my senses. The fog thickened, rolling in like a spectral curtain, obscuring my view even further. Panic set in as I struggled to make out the road ahead. My grip on the steering wheel tightened and my knuckles turned white. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life, emitting a distorted, eerie melody that sent shivers down my spine. I fumbled to turn it off, but the volume only grew louder, filling the car with a haunting cacophony. The dissonant notes seemed to echo from within the fog itself, as if the very air was conspiring to drive me mad. Out of the corner of my eye, I glimpsed a figure standing on the side of the road. My heart leaped into my throat as I swerved to avoid it, but the figure seemed to glide effortlessly, appearing right in front of my car. Its features were shrouded in darkness, and it moved with an otherworldly grace. I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching in protest, but it was too late. I collided with the specter, and the world spun in a nauseating whirl of metal and glass. The car came to a stop, the eerie music still blaring from the radio. I stumbled out of the wrecked vehicle, trembling with fear. The figure, now illuminated by the dim headlights, was a ghastly skeletal creature with hollow eyes and a sinister grin. It reached out a bony hand towards me, and I could hear its chilling whisper in my mind, "You should have never come here." I turned and fled into the night, the creature's malevolent laughter echoing in my ears as I ran deeper into the darkness. The fog seemed to close in around me, concealing the world in an impenetrable shroud. Every step I took was like a plunge into an abyss of terror, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. Finally, I reached a chamber at the heart of the basement where a grotesque altar stood bathed in an eerie, flickering light. The room seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and I knew that I had stumbled upon the epicenter of the darkness that had haunted me. The creature materialized before me, its skeletal form contorting and shifting as if it were a grotesque puppet on invisible strings. It spoke in a voice that sent shivers down my spine, recounting the horrors of its existence and the countless souls it had claimed over the centuries. As the creature drew closer, I realized that there was no way to escape its clutches. I had become a victim of the night drive, trapped in a never-ending nightmare from which there was no escape. The darkness closed in around me, and I was consumed by a terror that would haunt me for all eternity.